this before. That said, it's not Dr. Lynch's fault. It's not my fault. Please listen. There is always something new that you can learn every time. I learn many things every time I listen to the lecture. So give him your attention. Here is his short bio. If I read the whole thing, we'd be here until 2 o'clock. Here's his short bio. Dr. Joshua Lynches currently serves as medical director for Aetna. He is a notable expert in several medical fields. He has presented on opioids and controlled substances locally, regionally, and nationally for many years. He graduated from NSU College of Osteopathic Medicine and holds a pharmacy degree from the University of Florida, University of School of Medicine, where he held the rank of Associate Professor of Medicine, Anesthesiology, and Cardiology. From 2007 to 2016, he served as an Associate Program Director for the Internal Medicine residency there. He is the past president of both the Florida Osteopathic Medical Association and the FMA, a past regent and current fellow of the American College of Physicians and senior fellow of the Society of Hospital Medicine. As you can imagine, his CV is about 10 times longer than mine, but I'm not comparing. We are honored to have him here. If you're on our live stream, now is the time to get back in front of your computer and get ready and buckle up. I will now give the microphone to Dr. Joshua Lynches. Take it away, sir.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for having me this morning. We're going to spend the next 2 hours. We're going to spend the next 2 hours talking about controlled substances. Has anybody not heard me give this talk? Okay, so I'll be speaking to the 3 people that just raised their hand. I did try to update my slides. The law does require that we cover certain topics, so those topics, unfortunately, may be a little bit repetitive for you, but then there are some other aspects that I tried to update this. So without further ado, the only disclosure that I have is I know Tom Peters. So over there in a corner. I don't have any financial or other material interests to disclose. The comments that I'm going to make are my comments alone. They're not representative of any organization, employer, or other. And this part of the outline we'll cover this morning, and this is the rest of the outline, so we'll jump right into it with the pharmacology. And as we remember, opioids bind to the mu, kappa, and delta receptors. Now, many of us remember the mu receptors because that's where they get a lot of their bang for the buck. Interestingly, however, just recently, and I'm going to jump all the way ahead to give you a little teaser, recently researchers at the University of Florida have identified a novel drug compound that targets only the delta receptors. That's important because the delta receptor activation causes no respiratory depression, which, as you know, in this class of drugs, that's what kills people. This is going to be a very interesting compound if this comes to fruition. And I say that I jump ahead because we're going to beat up on opioids for the next hour and a half or so, and then we'll end with the last half an hour about other things that we can use. So I just wanted to introduce the topic. This is the gist of what these things do at the receptors. They're further subdivided into what they do at those receptors, whether they're agonists, antagonists, or some combination thereof. And I've listed for you, none of my slides, by the way, are all encompassing in terms of the components, agents, or medications that there are. When you look at the federal law, there's like 80 pages that list every salt of the drug that there is. This is just a snapshot, just examples. I want to draw your attention to the partial agonist of buprenorphine. We will talk about that very, very slightly later, but I mentioned the fact that it's a partial agonist, and the reason why that's important is for those people that use buprenorphine, partial agonists pharmacologically have a ceiling effect. That is above which, a certain threshold, above which that dose, you don't eke out any more bang for the buck. That's it. You can continue to increase the dose as much as you want. You're not going to get any more effect. So that's important when we talk about agonists. The antagonists, we'll mention naloxone later. An antagonist is a pure antagonist. That is, there's no potential, pharmacologically, there's no potential for addiction when you use an antagonist. The opioid comparison chart, I've had this in my slides for a while now. And this is, I think, is very important when we're switching from one agent to the other. Again, just a snapshot of different medications that we use. These are textbook numbers. So when you look at the onset and duration of action, if you're looking for an agent that works quickly, fentanyl patch would not be your go-to. If you're looking for an agent that lasts a long time, meperidine would not be your go-to. So it just gives you that idea. But really, the gist of this slide is for when we have patients that come in and you want to switch them from one opioid to another, you can use a comparison chart like this, and the last column gives you the equianalgesic dose. In this topic, we talk about morphine milligram equivalents. So you can see, as an example, you could see that meperidine is 10 times weaker than morphine, right? 300 is equal to 30. So it gives you an idea. But when we use the chart for switching a patient from one agent to the other, the first thing we do is total up the total daily dose. That's scheduled and breakthrough, NPRN. Total that up, and then you'll have your morphine milligram equivalent. Then you can switch to another agent. When we switch to another agent, you want to start with about 50 to 60% of what that total daily dose was in that calculation, recognizing that the patient is relatively naive to whatever you're switching to. We can always titrate up. It's very difficult to take stuff away. So that's number one. And number two is the immediate release dosing forms that we can use for breakthrough pain should account for about 10 to 20% of their total daily dose. So you want to start about 50% of where they were before, 10 to 20% can be used for breakthrough pain. I've listed this slide before, but I want to make mention of something that I added at the bottom. So it may surprise you to know that opioids are not one single pharmacological structural class. There actually are 4 different classes structurally that make up the opioid category. And I've listed some of those for you. But what you'll notice on the slide is that I've also indicated some of the medications have an asterisk next to them. Patients who have a pseudo-allergy, that is the non-immunologic histamine-mediated adverse reaction from the mast cell. Morphine is notorious at doing this. That's not an allergy. That's not, that when somebody says that they get red and whatnot, that's not an allergy. That's a known side effect. If you think that the patient needs an opioid and you want to try something different, then you can use one of the agents that has an asterisk. On the bottom of the screen, what I listed for you is I listed the agents that are most potent and least likely to cause that histamine-mediated release. I put tramadol down there because of the 5 that I listed on the bottom, tramadol is the least potent, but also tramadol has no histamine-mediated, tramadol does not induce histamine. So you're not going to have the same effect with tramadol that you would with some of the other opiates that are on the screen. I crossed out propoxyphene because that's off the market now. Propoxyphene was on the market since the 1950s, but it hasn't been on the market in the last 15 years. This was the active ingredient in Darvon 65 or Darvocet N100. Those of you that have practiced for a while know what I'm talking about, but it caused fatal dysrhythmias and it was taken off the market in the fall of 2010. So that's not there anymore. All right, controlled substance examples. So again, this is a snapshot. It's not all encompassing. And I want to mention the 3 agents. Actually, I want to mention a couple of agents, the 4 that are highlighted, but I also want to make mention of one other. We'll start on the right-hand side. And those of you that have heard me before understand that I'm going to apologize now. One of the rules of public speaking is you're never supposed to insult your audience, so I apologize in advance if you find this insulting. The CBD oil that's listed on this screen is real CBD oil. That is FDA grade CBD oil. The government does not buy that from Amazon or GNC or from the guy selling peaches on the side of the road. This is real CBD. Someone in the audience is going to tell me I'm taking something, it's called CBD and it works. That's wonderful. At the turn of the century, they used to call that snake oil. I have no idea what you're taking. You don't know what you're taking. I could put CBD on a bottle of water and I can sell it to you if you're that desperate for what you think. Talk to me. I was born in Brooklyn. We sold the bridge many times. This CBD oil, FDA grade, FDA approved CBD oil, only approved for 2 rare, serious childhood epileptic type seizures. Unless you're a pediatric neurologist, you don't know what I'm talking about. Initially, when this came out in June of 2018, it was scheduled as a class 5. Now, the interesting thing here is, remember, I'm talking to you about straight up CBD, not unadulterated. CBD compound, when we look at the cannabis sativa plant, there's like 300 or 400 active ingredients. We talk about 5. One of them is CBD. CBD has zero pharmacologic potential for addiction. No addictive potential in CBD. What you may hear about is some people that sprinkle a little THC on that. THC has addictive potential. So the question, though, begs, why would the DEA take an agent that has no addictive potential and make it a C5 controlled substance? And the backstory that I got from people that don't want to be named is that because it's a derivative of the cannabis plant, they wanted to dissuade people from trying to use it. The fact that it's only used for a very, very narrow FDA-approved indication had dissuaded some of its legitimate use. And so 2 years after it was FDA-approved, they descheduled it. It's still a prescription, still a legend drug. You still need a prescription for it, but it is no longer a controlled substance. So that's CBD oil. As we move to your left, tramadol, introduced in 1995. It's the active ingredient in Ultram, Ultracet. That's tramadol. Tramadol has weak mu agonist properties. Initially, when it was introduced, it was touted as like the next greatest thing that we could go to instead of opioids. Well, what they found shortly thereafter is that there was some addictive potential, some cross-reactivity with true allergies to other opioids. So the the DEA reclassified tramadol in 2014, and it's been a C4 ever since. On the left-hand side, you see I crossed out lower dose of hydrocodone. Same thing prior to 2014. The dose of hydrocodone in an agent determined whether it was a C2, which is listed to the left of it in that row, or a C3 if the dose of hydrocodone was lower. Since 2014, anything with hydrocodone now, because of its addictive potential, is now a C2. The last 2 that I want to mention on the slide is, number 1, I want to mention fiorinol, which is class 3. I get this from some insightful folks ask me this from time to time. Why is fiorinol a C3, but Fioricet is not a controlled substance? Which is true. That's a true statement. And here's the answer. Butalbital, both the agents, by the way, have butalbital and caffeine. Both agents have the same amount of butalbital.
Mr. Chris Newland is the managing partner of the law offices of Christopher L. Newland. He earned his BA from Brown University and his JD from the Catholic University of America, Columbus School of Law. Chris formerly served as general counsel of the Florida Medical Association and assistant counsel to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida. His practice now consists primarily of representing physicians and physician groups. He currently serves as general counsel to the Aesthetic Society, Florida Society of Plastic Surgeons, Florida Society of Dermatology, Florida Chapter of American College of Physicians, Florida Chapter of the American College of Surgeons. Basically, he's a pretty smart guy and you should listen to him. Okay? I offered his personal cell number to everyone for personal legal advice, and he at the last second said don't do that. But I'm sure if you pay attention to him, he may give you his personal cell for friendly advice if you need it. Without any further ado, Mr. Chris Newland, take it away.
Thank you very much. Can I have the clicker? No, it's the clicker. Good morning and welcome to the 2025 FMA annual meeting and the CME. My name, as you've heard, is Chris Newland, former general counsel of the FMA, now trying to make some money on my own. To put us in proper posture here, how many of you in this room are here because you've either heard my presentation before or you've heard reputations and you could think of nothing you'd rather be doing on a Friday morning? Show of hands. An honest crowd. How many of you are here because the Florida legislature, in its infinite wisdom, said you have to be here? I love lobbying for this group because I get to create a rule that says you have to come to a lecture that I give. What a racket, right? So, let's talk a little bit about laws and rules. What am I going to do today? Medicine is the most overregulated industry in history. You all know that. I apologize for being here. You did not go to medical school, residency, fellowship with the goal that you wanted to be in a laws and rules course on a Friday morning. But it is what you have to do. So I'm going to tailor this not necessarily to your practice, although that's obviously some of it. My goal is to go after the stuff that's going to get you in trouble, either with a jury or, more importantly, the Florida Board of Medicine and the Department of Health. Some of the stuff that is coming in the next half an hour or hour actually comes from prosecution services. Quick backstory. If you get in trouble and a complaint is filed against your license, that complaint goes to prosecution services that decides whether it is worthy of investigation, whether it's worthy of prosecution. Prosecution services came to me about 5 years ago and said, Chris, you give this course. Yeah. I want to put in some stuff because we want to go after the truly bad doctors. And there are some truly bad doctors out there who take off the wrong legs, molest patients. We want to get those out of the system. What we don't want to do is spend our time going after ticky-tack stuff that we have to because you guys have broken, your clients have broken the law, but it wastes our time. These are good doctors. These are things that should not be getting them in trouble, but they are. So, first and foremost, it's easy, but say, update your profile. One of the things that I'll be doing over the next hour, every law that I give you, I have had clients get in trouble because they disobeyed it. So there are going to be a lot of war stories here. I've been doing this now for 35 years. You guys come up with new and creative ways of getting yourselves into trouble each and every day. But this is one of the ones that staff says, please tell your guys to do it. Within 15 days, you have to alert the Department of Health through your profile if there's a change in your address, a change in your staff privileges, your medical malpractice history, and that includes settlements, financial responsibility, board certification, education, or your disciplinary and criminal history. Unfortunately, folks, that includes DUIs. If you get a DUI, they consider that an act that impinges on your ability to practice medicine. So here's a little secret, and I've done this many times. I won't mention names. Dr. Smith back there. Yeah. No. If you are arrested for DUI, what you and your attorney have to try and do is get the charges reduced to reckless driving. They don't care at the Department of Health if you're a bad driver. They do care if you're an impaired driver. So even if you want to plead nolo contendere, which is, okay, we're just going to pretend this didn't happen and everything's in abatement. No, that gets reported and you're going to be spending some time at PRN. Try and get it to reckless driving. It's a misdemeanor. Even if it's a first class misdemeanor, you don't get in trouble. Now, what happens if you don't update your profile? Remember I started by talking about that letter that you may get from the Department of Health saying there's an investigation on your license? That letter, by law, does not get forwarded.